Back again. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about eight extremely influential, badass female historical figures. Yes, we are. So strap in for the ride and we'll get started. Now, these girls, these women, these incredible souls span across a multitude of different civilizations, a multitude of different time eras, a multitude of different backgrounds. Some came from poverty, some came from unbelievable wealth, but they all had one thing in common, and that was that they were a badass queen or a badass warrior. Now, the reason that I'm going to be talking about these particular eight is because I've recently been inspired by them, and I've done a little bit of digital art and have designed prints based on each woman, and you can get those as a digital download on my website. So for myself, anything artistic always has a well thought out background story to it. Everything I paint, digitally make, it all has a purpose. Such as today, I got my first tattoos, which, I mean, you can go onto my TikTok or Instagram to see those. I've been thinking about those for like, a year, maybe two. So yeah, I wanted you guys to know what the digital art was about, and let us get started. I have spoken about a lot of these women before, either on TikTok or on YouTube, but yeah, I just wanted it all in one place. So a wee bit of a countdown video. We'll start at 1. We'll work our way through to 8. As per usual, I would love it if you could subscribe. I will also put the link to the prints down below. Okay, first and foremost, let's talk about Boudica. Boudica and her story, without a doubt, every single time I talk about it, gives me goosebumps. She was phenomenal. She was the queen of the Iceni tribe, a mother of 2. She was married to the Iceni tribesman, the chief, and there was some heated sort of civil unrest within the tribes, within the Celtic ancient British tribes people, right? And so they were one of the bigger or larger tribes. And then Boudica's husband passed away. Now, her husband had fairly good relations with the Romans. At this point in time, the Romans had 3 large holds within Britain. So they had like 3 cities essentially, and they were extremely powerful. They had the money, they had the means, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, the husband was on good terms. And so Boudica assumed that as she took over the position of chieftain, that would sort of roll over and that her good standing with the Romans would be fine. That was not the case. So she one day was in her home, and the Romans took her and her 2 daughters and abused them. A little bit of a trigger warning, because I will go into this a little bit further, as I believe it is important to talk about. So these Romans, their thought pattern was, let us defame, humiliate, degrade this woman so that she will, step into line and that we won't have to do anything and she'll just be like putty in our hands. She won't be a problem anymore. So they tied her to a post in the middle of the village and whipped her. And I don't know if you've ever seen a Roman whip, but they had like shards of bone or sometimes metal attached to them. She was physically abused beyond comprehension. Then they took her two daughters, her young daughters, and sexually assaulted them. It was horrific. The tribe was naturally mortified, and that goes past the point of humiliation. That's just like public torture, essentially. But what it did not do is make Boudica fall into line. It did the polar opposite. It fueled this hate within her for the Romans and what they'd done to her daughters and herself, but to her daughters, so fiery hot that she would enact some of the best revenge that the era saw. So she obviously healed from this awful abuse, as did the daughters, and she united the tribes of the British people that previously they had been like, you know, they didn't see eye to eye, but she united them into a big militia of humans. And their goal was singular: defeat the Romans. Now, the Romans had risen to power all around the world because of their strategized battlefield military, essentially. That's how they had defeated countless different civilizations. What Boudica and her tribesmen and her militia did was the polar opposite. They were wild, ferocious, and completely unpredictable. And they caught the Romans off guard in the middle of the night on multiple occasions. Boudica was able to destroy, burn to the ground 3 Roman cities. She almost eradicated the Roman rule from Britain completely, almost. The sheer destruction of that is unfathomable. These are non-trained, just wild people, as the Romans viewed them, led by a woman that usually are too preoccupied with not getting along. And she burned 3 Roman strongholds to the ground. It's estimated that 70 to 80,000 Romans were killed in their attacks. And she wasn't she didn't go easy on them. A lot of them died via torture. She was out for cold hard revenge on the Romans for what they did to her and her daughters. She was described as a lioness with the amount of vigor and passion that she had in the destruction. 70,000. That's 70,000 people. She was defeated. After doing the damage that she did, she was defeated. We don't exactly know how she died. Some say it was on the battlefield where the Romans were obviously at their strongest. And some say that she poisoned herself because she, quote, would rather die by her own hand than at the hands of the Romans. Personally, I think the second is quite likely, just knowing obviously what she was capable of and her personality and what drove her it feels fitting. Nonetheless, she is an absolute vibe and always will be. She's incredible, and she is a figure of history that has definitely not been forgotten, and that is why she earns a place on my gallery wall. The quote that I included on the bottom of the print, I just adore. I'm not fighting for my kingdom and wealth now. I am fighting as an ordinary person for my lost freedom, my bruised body, and my outraged daughters. All right, number 2 is Fu Hao. Fu Hao was from the Shang dynasty, which is ancient China, and she was one of the 60-odd wives of the emperor at the time. Now, there was some civil unrest. I believe there was an attack from the north, and he was obviously preparing his military, and Fu Hao, one of the wives, asked if she could please join the military. She was obviously serving as one of the wives in Wu Ding, the emperor's, well, he was a king at that stage, in his harem, but she also was a priestess as well. So yeah, she asks the husband, the king, hey, can I get involved in the military? And he says, sure. Now, she did not just become a part of the military. No, she became a general of the military. Now, not only did she just win some battles, she became the most powerful and well-renowned war general of the entire time period. The top dog, the queen bee, if you will. Out of all the men that served military status generals, she was the one. Now, she was so important that she was buried in a tomb that literally only special of the special kings received. So her tomb was unearthed miraculously. Her tomb had been completely untouched, and it was found in modern times, and it was ginormous, something like 755 jade objects, bone objects, bronze objects, armory, shell, dogs, animals, and most notably 16 slaves that would have been buried with her alive to attend to her death, to attend to her entrance into the afterlife. Let me reiterate, not just any king got a burial like that, let alone a queen, let alone a queen of 64 other queens, right? She was amazing at what she did to deserve a burial such as this. And so that is why Fu Hao, with her military prowess, her strategy, and her determination to ask for what it was that she wanted, is on the wall. That's why she's on the wall. 3 is yet again another military queen, Sunain. Sunain was the daughter of King Philip II of Macedonia, which made her the half-sister to Alexander the Great, and she was renowned for her military capabilities. Now, from a young age, she was trained in the arts of war. Now, out of all royal Macedonian women through all of history at that point, she was one of only 3 women to fight in military campaigns, which goes to show how rare and special it was, and how skilled she had to be able to lead in a military situation at that point in history. Now, she was famous, and it was spoken about millennia later, sorry, half a millennia later, that she not only led the military, but she was at the head of the military when they went into fight. So with her own hand, she slew the enemy queens that they were going up against. And now when she had to fight her last fight, rather than not fighting, she went in head first and was killed in battle because she, quote unquote, resolved upon a glorious death rather than stripped of her dominions, accept a private life unworthy of the daughter of Philip II. Next up on the list is Cleopatra, the Ptolemy Queen of Egypt. Cleopatra So Cleopatra was and is obviously enigmatic and well known, but her skills as a communicator have been overlooked for centuries. Cleopatra was perhaps the first woman in sovereign history to rule alone for a period of over a decade, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. She used incredible leadership skills, and she had good public awareness and diplomacy in a time of wackiness. She was strategic and extremely well educated. The girl spoke 9 languages. Can we give it a moment to sink in? You know, she also worked stunningly when it came to strategic moves for her people and her throne. She has been said that Cleo was actually the best leader of all time. Like, that statement has been made by many people, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, she is quite regularly sexualized because, let's be frank, it's interesting. Okay, it is interesting. But what I love about her is, despite a lot of people believe that everything about her sexuality is just Roman slander, whereas I like to believe that there is a middle ground, because we look at this point in time in the Roman history and we have things like the cult orgies of Dionysus and those sorts of things. It was a very sexualized time in Roman history. And they say, obviously, the Romans tried to degrade her, but even Roman society was hypersexualized at this point in time. So I like to think that it sits somewhere in the middle. And the reason that I don't particularly like it when people are like, no, like, how dare you perpetuate Roman slander to degrade our queen kind of thing, is because it implies that a powerful, knowledgeable, strategically brilliant woman in power cannot also have a sexual appetite. That's what I don't like about that rhetoric. She is all those things and also could have very well had a large sexual appetite, and that's okay. Those two things can absolutely go together. So that's why I don't love it when people are like, that didn't happen regarding like her sexuality. Moving back in time in our Egyptian female leaders is Nefertiti. Now, Nefertiti was the Egyptian queen of the 18th dynasty in Egypt, and she was a great leader. Hence why she is on the wall. She's made the wall, you know. She would be thrilled, I guess. Now, the reason she was so significant is that, well, first of all, every pharaoh throughout the Egyptian history had a wife, typically. Sometimes many. And how many of those wives do we know the name of? That's the first thing. So she was important, right? Her name literally means a beautiful woman has come. So she was the wife of Akhenaten. I can never say his name. Akhenaten. And essentially, the reason she was so important is they shifted the very complex polytheistic belief systems of the Egyptian people and changed their religion to a monotheistic religion, which is absolutely insane. It's literally crazy. Now they changed the religion to worship the sun god. Within this shift, we believe that the wife became a more prominently respected role of within the culture, and therefore we have Nefertiti really ruling alongside her husband, the pharaoh, and so that is why she's made the wall. There's also a prominent and well-preserved bust, which is like her head to sort of like her chest area, that's displayed in Britain, I believe, at one of the... No, sorry, Berlin. It's displayed in Berlin. And so we have a very good idea of what she looks like. And yeah, just as a tidbit, ancient Egypt did go back to the old way of worshipping, but pretty incredible when you think about it. Next is Xingqiu, also known as Xingqiu, and yes, I have done a video of her on this YouTube channel before. Now, she was the most, and I believe that she deserves this claim, the most successful pirate of all time. Why? Because she had the most ships out of all piracy under her sails, sailing for her, and she was able to retire. She was not murdered. She was not killed. She retired. Now, she also did some other really incredible things. Within pirating, there was a huge culture of, obviously, plundering and burning things to the ground, but also sexually assaulting the victims of the looting. When she came into power, she instituted an extremely strict law amongst her pirates that if somebody was to rape a woman, a captive, they would be immediately executed. She went so far as to state that if a pirate genuinely fell in love with a captive, he had to essentially prove that, and he could not be unfaithful to her for his entire life, or he would be instantly murdered. So she, with that law, probably saved hundreds of thousands of women from abuse that potentially they would have suffered if she was not their leader and did not institute such a solid law. Next up, we have Tamaris. Now, Tamaris was the queen of the msha.ke people, who were a nomadic people in what is current day Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, that sort of area. Very large amount of land. Now, the nomadic people definitely had a powerful and unique way of fighting. They were very dependent on horses and horseback riding and the bow and arrow. That was their sort of standard practice, I suppose. She was the wife of their leader. Upon his death, she stepped up as the leader. So King Cyrus, who sort of is like in the pre-Persian Empire, he attempted to invade her land. Essentially, he tries to suggest marriage. Actually, suggest is probably not the best choice of words. Like, basically said like, yeah, you can marry me if you want. You know, unite. And she was like, absolutely not. Cyrus, he was real mad. Basically, he offered his hand in marriage. She like rejected him straight up, and he was like, So he played dirty. He sent some of his weakest soldiers into her land and got them to set up a banquet that was all poisoned, right? So her people come, kill the weak soldiers, and then there's all this food left over, right? So they're like, well, I guess it's here. So they eat it and they die. Within that collection of people happened to be one of her sons. Yep. So essentially, to cut things short, Cyrus was killed within a skirmish, and she did not find that enough. So she took his body, beheaded him, and then put his head into a bucket of blood, and famously quoted, "I warned you that I would quench your thirst for blood, and so I shall." Now, finally, we have Queen Tayuta. Just you wait. So Tayuta was the queen of the Illyrian people. Now, essentially a situation had arisen where Rome had said to her, had demanded that she stop her country's pirates from attacking their vessels. She refused. So they were like, okay, war it is, you've chosen violence. And she was like, yeah, I have. Let's not put it lightly. Tetua's most feared people were her pirates. They were vicious. Her extremely powerful navy was of huge concern to Rome. That's how much power she had with her navy, right? Now, piracy was completely legal in Illyria. Not just viable, but a respectable profession. Basically, it gets to a point where she's so insulted by the Romans that she has one of their ships seized. And basically she orders one of the Roman ambassadors to death. This sort of sparked an outright war between Rome and Illyria, and Illyria was just not large enough to compare with Rome. Rome was just so powerful. But the reason for my love for her is that she did not face the humiliation of having to bow down to the reign of Rome. No, she gave up her crown because she would not bow. Like, hell yes. That is the energy that I want in my household, you know? So now you know the stories behind these immaculate women. The reason they bring strength to just deal with my taxes. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I can have some of that energy to help me do my tax return, then thank you. And so that's why I created this collection. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Comment below if you would like to learn something more. You you've got video ideas, if you'd like me to do more art series, I can do things, you know. I appreciate you, and good evening, good day, good whatever.